Baş təlimçi, məsləhətçi və KLP Coaching'in mentoru Kristin LaRonca Parpel. Biz dəvət edirik alqışlarla səhnəmizə.
Hi, everybody. Okay, the last one of the day. I know Elena and Tatiana will close. So thank you for being here because I know we're way over schedule. And one of the things us women have to do is be flexible. So I'm going to be flexible with what I've prepared. I'm going to change it up a little bit because I don't want to keep you too long. But I also want you to leave with a bit of a wrap-up. So I know in the program it says I'm from Czech Republic. I've actually lived there more than half my life. I married a Czech man. I was backpacking there after university 30 years ago. But I'm actually from the US. So I'm American, partly Czech, and I have a lot of life experience because I'm over 50 now, which I guess I can be proud of, and there's a lot of good that comes with it. And what I want to do today is share. I work as an executive coach, but before I became a coach, I worked in corporate advertising for nearly 15 years. I never expected to be a businesswoman. I studied psychology. I love children. I was hoping today there was going to be a chance that that baby that was a couple rows behind me, that I was going to get to hold the baby. But things happen, and we're flexible. And I wanted to work in an orphanage in Czechoslovakia in '93, but couldn't make enough money, so I went into advertising. And to my extreme surprise, and the surprise of everybody around me, I was really quite successful. And I think it was mostly because it was about people. It was about working with people. It was about connecting with people. It was about putting your hard work in. And I worked my ass off, guys. I mean, I really did. And by the age of 26, I became the CEO of a company called Wonderman. I'm not sure if they're here in Baku. And I took that job knowing that I didn't really know how to take that job. I really didn't know what I was doing. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about what I learned on the journey, but more important, what I do now, helping other people through their journey. And I'm definitely in the place where I need to be. It took me a long time to find that. But one of the things that brings me the biggest joy is working with other women. And the thing that's fascinating, so I live in Czech Republic, I live in Prague, I'm from America, I've worked in London, I've worked in New York, I've worked in Czech Republic, and when I was in New York, I had a global job. So I worked with 68 agencies around the world. So I've worked with many different cultures, and there's one thing that does not change, no matter which country I go to, and that's the connection between women. And it's really beautiful. I got here 2 days ago, and I called my husband, I'm like, this is so great, I'm in my happy place, this is so great. I wrote my mom as well, and I said, it's just amazing. We had dinner last night. The connection was like immediate, like we were old friends. We had topics we can share. I met Lauren, Crystal, Elena, I can't see you all. It took like 5 minutes to connect. It doesn't matter what industry we're in. It doesn't matter which country we're from. We have a connection. So what I want to talk about in the last sort of wrap up here is the value of women supporting other women. It's interesting because I was sitting there going, oh, I have to change that because we're all saying the same thing. But from my studies working with business, the more you hear the same thing in different ways, the more you're going to remember it. And as a coach, I don't know if any of you has anybody ever worked with a coach before? It's a pretty magical experience. I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm a coach. I'm saying it because for 15 years, I didn't know anything about coaching, and now I go, oh, I wish I had known that when I was running a company. Would have been a lot easier for me. But one of the things is we look at what's happened in the past. We look at the situation, but we don't stay there. We define it, and we move. And we take steps forward, and we make progress. So what I want, in the next 10 minutes while I sort of close up here today, my goal is that each one of you leave with one thing from today's conference that will be an action point for you. Something that you will do different, something that you will be brave about, something that you will ask for, something that you will tell somebody. Because when you come to something like this, it's overwhelming. I mean, even for me today, I'm listening to all these different ideas. But what's going to make a difference is when I leave and I do one thing differently. Somebody's story has touched me. And if you have more things, great. We all know that tomorrow we go back to work and we open up our computer and the day starts. So let's try to think about one thing. So I'm just gonna lay the background. We're not gonna stay in the bad stuff for too long. But the recent report, the Global Gender Gap Report, says that there are only 21.6% of women in managerial positions globally. If we take that to the C-suite, it's half of that. So if we look at the numbers, we're not there. And what I want to share with you is, if you don't want to be there, that's okay. Forget this should. I work with executives. I work with a woman who's a board member on a bank, and she said, well, I probably should become the CEO because that's probably the next thing I should do. I said, what do you want to do? I don't know. So let's put away the should. I think you said that to me before when we were talking. Rebecca was helping me through something today. Let's think about what you want. But if we look at that one number, because we're businesswomen, it will take us 135 years to fill the to become gender equal with men in business. I'm 52. I'm not going to wait that long. I have a daughter who's 19. I want her to have that job, what she wants, if that's what she wants. If she wants something else, that's fine. So then I was thinking, what are all the reasons? And the worst thing, the thing that really made me sad, there was a recent study. I mean, I'm doing my research as we all do and checking, if it's good content. There was an article in Forbes, you can read it, and there's this Workplace Bullying Institute in the US. And they found that women are bullied by other women 80% of the time. Now, if I look at all of the different statistics of things we can do to close the gender gap, this is the one we should all leave with today. So, what can we do? Does anybody know what a queen bee is? Yeah, it's a derogatory term for women who are in high-level positions, usually in the C-suite. They created the term in about 1973, and it talked about women who were in these positions who acted like men, who didn't support other women, who didn't give space to women who were coming up. And unfortunately, I experienced a few queen bees in New York City, and it was shocking to me. It was after 8 years of living in Prague, where I had been the general manager. I was the country manager for this company called Wonderman. All of my colleagues, as many other people had brought up today, they were men. They were 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and they're actually quite nice to me, I mean, they actually treated me quite well, but it wasn't fun. I couldn't, hang out with the boys. So this was 2000 when I went back to New York. And I don't know, do you ladies know Sex and the City? Yeah, oh, it's so great, my favorite show ever. And I had this imagination that when I go back to New York, it's gonna be Sex and the City. And after work, I'm gonna go out with my girlfriends, and it's gonna be super fun. But I was in a global role in headquarters, so everyone was very, very high level. And what I found as soon as I walked in that office, there were sharp elbows, and women were not helping other women. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand. And I was just sort of surprised and dumbfounded. And then the longer I thought about it, I thought, wow, their toxic behavior, I feel really bad. I don't want to be here. I don't have any role models. So I started reconsidering my career. There were women 40 plus, making a ton of money, traveling all over the world, beautiful apartments in New York City. No family, no partner, no life, and no friends. And then I saw the women who were maybe in their 30s, late 30s New York, sort of the normal time to have your first baby. So if you guys are late 30s and you don't have a child yet and you want to fit in, go to New York. But honestly, those women were exhausted. They were leaving home at 7 a.m., coming to work, pumping their breast milk during lunch, bringing that breast milk home, coming back at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and doing it all over the next day. So I didn't see any role models. So I made the decision, that's not what I wanted. And it was a hard decision, because I had worked really hard to get there. So I moved back to Czech Republic. married my husband, had my kids, and said, oh God, now what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my career, right? What do I want to do? So I worked at UNICEF. I know there's a woman from UNICEF here, my dream job. Then I worked at the Forum 2000. I did some things that I thought were really great. And then I kept thinking about, what did I learn while I was in New York? And that's that people don't communicate well. So what I'm going to share with you now, and I can see I'm already through half my time, so I'm going to have to be really quick. I'm going to share with you some few ideas of what you can do to take control of your life, of yourself, and to help other women along the way. So first of all, raise of hands here. If I were to ask any of you separately at a cup of coffee or a drink after, what are you really great at? How many of you would be able to tell me? Okay, ladies, you got a couple hours after we're finished today. I did this in Prague a couple weeks ago with a group of 50 people, and it was same. If we want to get ahead, you have to know what your strengths are. You have to be able to tell people what it is. And just like Lauren was talking about, it's also okay that we're not great at everything. So it's just as important for us to know not only what our, I don't want to call them weaknesses, but what our challenges are. And you have two choices. It's something I want to learn, or it's something I don't want to learn. So I'm going to put someone next to me who knows that skill, and I'm going to work with them as a team. And there's another very interesting study. It's called the confidence gap between men and women. And what happens is when there was, I think it was done with Hewlett-Packard, it was an internal study, to see when men and women applied for a certain job. Women applied for that job only when they met 100% of the criteria. Men, 60 is enough. I'll get by with the rest. Think about what your strengths are and stick to them. So one thing to think about is, and this is a really interesting concept, I've done it with many people over the years. Think about that thing that you do really well and that gives you energy and that you love to do. And now think about how often you do that. I'm talking about work right now. Okay, when you go into your job, whatever it is, how often do you do that thing that you're amazing at? And how often do you go to work and do that thing that you're not so great at and sucks your energy? And I want you just to raise your hand for me, because these statistics never change, and I have done this with many groups. How many of you do that thing that you love to do and you're awesome at? 10% of your time, wait, don't put it up. I want to know how much time. 10%? 10% of your time? 20%? 30%? 40%? 50? 60? 70? 80? 90? 100? Okay, many of you didn't vote, so you're either asleep and I can't see you, or you hate your jobs. So I will tell you, and I normally do this, and I've done it with many groups, men and women, by the way, it's usually about 30% of people's time is spent doing what they really love to do and they're really good at. So think about that statistic for yourself, and think if you can just change it a little bit. If it's 30%, can you make it 40? Can you make it 50? Because when we come to work engaged and come to work feeling great about what we do, it's magic for everyone around us. Okay, so how many of you love to introduce yourself? Hi, I'm Kristin, and oh yeah, okay, awesome, great. Some of you have your hands up. It's really hard to see you, but I see someone with their hand up in the back. She loves to introduce herself. That's awesome. People usually don't love to do that. They say, oh, hi, I'm Kristin. Oh yeah, I work. I have my own company. We don't like to give ourselves grand introductions. You have two options here. Learn how to introduce yourself. Think about what you want to say to people. Go by a friend and say, I have a really hard time introducing myself. Tatiana, could you help me? And Tatiana can be like, sure, Kristin, I'll help you out. And she stands next to me and gives me a grand introduction about who I am and how I'm wonderful and why you want to work with me. And if we start doing that for each other, we can lift each other up. And I go to a lot of women's conferences, a lot of events, and that is my favorite thing to do. I love connecting people, and I love lifting people up. they sometimes get a little red in the face, but it's easy to do for somebody else. So give your colleagues, your friends, your sisters, your daughters, women that you want to help, give them grand introductions. Okay, who knows what it means to amplify good ideas? I know you know it, Lauren. Okay. Well, the reason I know that Lauren knows it is because it is something that was actually developed, I believe, in Washington, D.C., during the Obama era, when there were just a few people in his cabinet in the beginning, and they were sitting at the table, and they would say something, and they realized, like, well, someone isn't listening to me. There's nobody amplifying my voice. So what we can do for other women is make sure your voice is heard. So let's say this front row of us, we're all sitting at a table together, and double amount of men. And Crystal gives a really great, I'm just picking on you guys because I know your names, yeah? Crystal gives a really great idea. But then Bob takes that idea, and then John talks about it. By the end of the meeting, it's not Crystal's idea anymore, but I remember it came from her. So what I can do is jump in and say, guys, I love that idea, that Crystal's idea that you're talking about. Let's go back to Crystal and ask her opinion again. Bring it back to the person it belongs to. So think about where and when you can amplify other women's voices. And if we can do that for each other, we're supporting each other as a whole group. Sometimes Crystal will need it, sometimes Rebecca will need it, sometimes I will need it, sometimes Lauren will need it. We help each other. Okay, I'm at a time, so what I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna maybe just finish. Okay, I'm gonna finish with two things. If you don't ask, you won't receive. Ladies, I hear this all the time. I coach professionals every single day. They come into my office and say, I can't believe I didn't get that promotion. I can't believe I didn't get the recognition. I can't believe I wasn't asked to speak at the conference. And I said, okay, so who did you share it with? Well, nobody. Should have known. Come on. We can't read each other's mind. I think Lauren talked about it. Don't make assumptions that people know what you want, that people know your story, that people can read what you expect from them. We have to raise our voices and be very specific. Rebecca talked about it as well. If we want something, be very, very clear. And that is a mistake many of us have made. I had a really funny story to tell you about that, so I'll tell you after coffee after. Okay, so I'm going to end with a quote from a woman who is a role model for me. She actually happens to be Czech, so she's sort of like, my Czech-American connection, even though I'm not Czech. And Marilyn Albright said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. So if you leave here today and you do one thing and you help one other woman, in my book, you have succeeded in what we're here to do at She Conference. Thank you for your time.